Captain, we're directly in the path of a small asteroid. Should we move to avoid?
Do the Janeway protocol.
Are you sure, sir?
Yes?
Collision alert, sir! The kindergarten on deck 8! It's gone! No, now the pre-K is gone! All the ship's children have been ejected into space!
All those kids?
Freeze program. In thousands of simulations, that's literally never happened before. Let's try another one on a ship with even more children.
Welcome to Deep Space Pride, a gay Star Trek podcast. My name is Mike, and I'm one of your hosts for this journey. And with me is my co-host, Johnson. Johnson, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. It's a little warm today, so, it's not my ideal, ambient temperature. I'm cooling down right now, but otherwise I'm fine.
Very good.
Yes. Yeah. How about you? Have you been today?
Pretty good. I went out and got some foam board for my pin display that I am building. So
Arts and crafts.
Yes.
I love arts and crafts.
I was going to start it before we recorded, but then I realized I did not have enough time. So
wow,
I set up for our podcasting instead of cutting some foam board and putting it together.
The pins are not going to go anywhere. So.
They're not. No, but I'm super excited now that I got the frame. So I'm excited to put that together. So I went out and got a few supplies for that.
Mm-hmm.
And had ramen for lunch, which is a favorite of mine.
I don't think I've had ramen since the beginning of the pandemic. It's been a while.
Oh, wow.
I've made my own ramen, which is not the same.
No, I'm sure.
No, absolutely not.
You don't make your own pork bone broth, I would imagine.
No, I think that's a whole process.
I'm sure it is.
It's it's legit a process.
Yeah.
And I don't have patience for that shit.
Well, for me, ramen I love ramen, but I love a good tonkatsu broth. So really, really important piece of ramen for me is the broth. So.
And that's where a lot of the work is.
Right, yes. It's not hard to do the noodles, chop up some mushrooms, bake the pork or whatever.
The pork katsu actually takes some time too. I think it's slow
cook it
or something.
Yeah. So so ramen today, arts and crafts and podcasting. And then I've got a few other things. And I'm cleaning up the office a little bit.
So productive weekend.
Yeah. How about you? What did you do today? You were outside, obviously.
I went outside, and it was hard because it was hot and humid. I just saw a friend for brunch, and then we played this board game. Some friends of mine and myself were really into board games, so we played this board game called Forts, and each person has a fort, as in when you're a kid you build a fort.
Yeah,
it's like that. You're you and your friends are building a fort, and the purpose of the game is you want to build the best fort
out of pillows and blankets and stuff.
Kind of. It doesn't get that in detail. I mean, at the end of the day, you just you want to upgrade your fort, and then whoever gets the most advanced fort, that equates to victory points and stuff like that. And then yeah. So and I won. It was my first time playing, and I won.
All right. And this is a legitimate board game.
Yeah. No, it's a legit board game.
Okay.
The last, I would say 5-10 years, board games have gone through a renaissance. And then there are a lot of board games that are started through Kickstarter and Indiegogo and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So now there's just this whole thing with board games. And it has definitely exploded since the start of the pandemic because people are inside. And,
Is this an online board game or is this a...
No, it's legit a board game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I have so many board games. I don't think I've ever even showed you.
No, not all of them. Yeah.
I have cabinets full of board games.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you're worried about the 20 pins that I have and thinking that that's an excessive amount. One might say that,
Well, I suppose
those in glass houses shouldn't throw the first stone.
Well,
perhaps.
I do think that board games are conducive to group activities. So it is a little bit like there is a utilitarian element to board games versus something that's just on display, I would say.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But they do take up space, don't get me wrong.
Yes.
You know,
significantly more than my pins, by the way.
Yes, I have two like full cabinets of board games. Next time you come over, I'll show you, and you'll be like, "That's a lot. That's a lot of stuff."
Yes. It
definitely more space than some pins.
It will totally displace my opinion of your essentialism lifestyle, where you're just good at hiding your stuff. Apparently,
I am very good at hiding my stuff. That's true. Yes. But there's a system for everything.
Of course there is.
Yeah.
There's a spreadsheet in your head for everything.
I mean, not for my board games, but there probably should be a PowerPoint presentation or something. I don't know.
Yes, absolutely.
And you people, you're all astronauts on some kind of Star Trek.
So why don't you start out? What did you Star Trek this week?
Yeah, so I think since the last time we spoke, so I did two major things. I finally finished the motion picture. I mean, like, and this is, for those of you that have not heard the podcast, I have seen the motion picture before, so don't freak out. This is my second viewing, but it's been, I think, over 2 decades. So it's been a while since I've seen the motion picture.
Okay.
And upon second viewing, I realized why I haven't revisited the film. I'll be honest. But look, I've seen other TOS films multiple times. I've seen The Voyage Home, I would say probably like 10 times. I've seen Undiscovered Country 40, 50 times, you know, but rewatching the motion picture, I was just like, I don't need to see this for another 20 years. It was just, you know, it's a little slow. You know, you also finished it recently.
I did. I agree. It is slow. There are some. It's also just the pacing. I don't know what it was. Right. And I realized that obviously they were coming back from a long hiatus of, you know, the show's been off the air for a while. They've kept, you know, the franchise was alive, but they weren't necessarily producing anything. But I just thought the pace of it could have been like a 40-minute episode. Like there were just long segments where people are just kind of looking at each other and kind of staring into space. And I'm just like, I don't understand why it's taking so long to do this thing. Well, I wonder. Continue. Oh no! Articulate your thoughts. No, I'm wondering if it is kind of a reflection of 2001: A Space Odyssey. In that sense, I wonder. Oh, you know what? There are some 2001: Space Odyssey vibes. Yeah. So I'm wondering if the effects and such. I don't know the time frames that these were both produced. I don't remember when 2001. I'm gonna look it up. It might have been actually around the same time period. Actually, no. It's 10 years before. It's from 1968, which is interesting. What? But essentially, I did think that like one of my biggest issues with the film is its pacing. Like I thought that it was very slow. I think it was overly deliberate. And there are just large segments where people are just kind of staring at each other or staring at the view screen, and you're looking at the view screen, and then you go back to their reaction of looking at the view screen, which isn't much, and then you go back to the view screen, and I'm like, what is happening right now? And then there are just odd moments where, yeah, like, you know, they're trying to go to warp within the stars. I you know, another thing, and this is one thing I'm very confused about after rewatching different shows, different eras. Is it safe to go to warp in a star system or not? I have no idea. I do think they go to warp pretty quickly after they leave space dock or whatever. Or yeah, they get out beyond Jupiter because that's on screen with the moons. So they do zoom by that, and then they try to go to warp, and they're like, warp 0.5. I'm like, what is that? And then they don't go to warp successfully because there's some calibrations off.
and then they go into a wormhole. I'm like, what is happening right now? And then there's an asteroid in the wormhole, and there's the big to do with this asteroid, and then I don't know. There were just odd things happening that weren't really. I'm like, what is like? First of all, why is this happening? But second of all, like, how is this happening? And there's like making shit up as they go along. I don't know. But it didn't really, like, for example, the whole wormhole scene didn't really do much for the story. Like, I think it was supposed to show that Kirk he was still kind of, getting his feet wet after being
right.
admiral's chair for a while.
Yeah.
But I was like, that was a long segue to something, very random.
Well,
at this point.
Yeah, well, that scene sort of brings up two things. One, it definitely shows the conflict between Decker and Kirk and kind of the new captain versus the old captain. And then the other thing, too, is it allows for Spock to join the crew, right? So that's the other piece. So it brings Spock into the...
I guess, but they didn't have to go into the wormhole for Spock to join the crew. I mean, they exited the wormhole, and then they met Spock, and Spock came on the Vulcan shuttle or whatever.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is Scotty had kind of foreshadowed this. I mean, he said that they weren't ready and this new engine wasn't tested. So I think it's a fair assumption that something, if you were
something would happen. I think my issue with it is we've never seen that happen before. I was like, why is this wormhole? Like, why did it generate a wormhole?
Right.
And it's just a long sidetrack. So anyway, literally, like, it could probably the whole film could have been boiled down to like maybe it's not even a two-parter. It's like maybe a slightly long, like 50-minute episode or something. So so I finished up the motion picture.
Yep.
And I also started to do a rewatch of Enterprise.
Wow.
And I told you this, but I've never seen Enterprise in HD before, because Enterprise premiered when I was in college, and I literally had a 15-inch like cathode ray tube TV or whatever it was. And it was like fine,
Right, yeah, sure.
And then, I mean, Enterprise had 4 seasons, so it finished up like a year after I graduated, like in 2005 or something like that. Mm-hmm. Wrapped up. And even after college, I did have a TV, like a decent sized TV, but it wasn't HD. HD TVs were not commonplace back then. And I just rewatched Broken Bow yesterday on my 75-inch HD TV. And I'm like, whoa. I mean, like, it's not the same level of quality as HD is nowadays. There's a little bit of graininess. But I'm like, this is actually like a very different viewing experience than I remember. And then there were a lot of things about the Enterprise premiere that I did not remember because it's been so long.
Well, going on to the HD thing, I mean, HD back then was 720p. So that was considered HD. You're watching it.
But it's also like 16:9. Like all the shows up to them have been 4:3.
Right. Yeah.
So the perspective is also different. It takes the full screen.
Yeah.
I did a rewatch of DS9. I've done some rewatch of some TNG episodes, even some Voyager episodes, and they're all 4:3.
Right.
And Enterprise was the first one that was widescreen, and I was like, "What is this?" Because all my, I definitely watched it in 4:3. And I was like, whoa, this is a very different viewing experience. But no, there's so much I did not remember, about the premiere. I remember the temporal Cold War nonsense. That I remember. But there were many other things that I did not remember. And it was actually kind of nice. It wasn't I thought it was actually, like, after rewatching that, I thought it was a pretty strong premiere.
Okay.
Yeah. Because
what didn't you remember? What were some of the things that
I didn't really remember a lot of the I know that it was like very critical, but if you were to ask me about Broken Bow, I really wouldn't have. I remembered the Suliban. I remember that you had a Klingon basically visiting Earth, but I didn't remember a lot of the human Vulcan tensions that were very central to I would say the first season of Enterprise. because the whole point is after Zephyr Cochrane's warp ship, that all happened and they had their first contact with the Vulcans. Apparently after that, like the Vulcans really held the humans back from venturing space. And I didn't, a lot of that I just didn't remember. So it was like, this is basically like 90 years after Zephyr Cochrane's test drive. And this is the first time that they are really letting, like the Vulcans are kind of letting people from Earth like do their own thing and kind of forge their own path. And that's a big component of the overall narrative, which I totally forgot about. So, and then the Temporal Cold War nonsense, I was like, all right, it's fine. Like, it's so complicated. And I actually reread stuff from Memory Alpha, and I was like, this shit still doesn't make any sense. It's fine.
Well, I think it's two things. It's a lost opportunity, and it's an unfinished storyline, really.
It is unfinished. They just kind of like, Manny Kato just like wrapped it up, and he was like, I'm moving on to like different stories because this is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And then he did his own thing for season 4.
Right.
Which was, season 4 was, in my opinion, like, I don't know if everyone who is a fan of Enterprise agrees with this, but I do think like season 4 was the best because they did like all these like throwback episodes, like fan service episodes. They did like, Mirror Universe episodes.
Mm-hmm.
It was more fun. And I thought overall more successful than some of the earlier episodes anyway. I thought the Zindi arc was actually not bad, but I don't know. It's been a while. I shouldn't even speak to it because I'll probably just say something incorrect. But anyway, so yes, that's what I've started. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else. I think that's mostly it. I'm looking at my notes because I'm trying to remember if there's anything else. I don't think so. Not in terms of Star Trek anyway. Oh,
Okay.
I'm still on the return. I'm still working my way through the return. I'm like 60, 70% through it.
Okay. So you're continuing to read a little bit. That's good. I have not. Well, I haven't read. I've listened, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yes. But I'm done. What about you? What have you Star Trekked since the last time we spoke?
So the last time we spoke on camera, on audio, is I had watched the motion picture. I'd finished it. But most recently, over this past week, I've been watching a lot of Voyager. So I went back and watched Scorpion parts 1 and 2, which is very good. And then before I moved on to the second episode of season 4, I think I did. I don't remember which order. I think I may have watched the second episode where Seven is kind of revealed in her new outfit and things like that.
So I didn't even talk about that. So in Enterprise, if you remember in Broken Bow, so like T'Pol is basically the Seven of Enterprise, right?
Right. Yes.
And then there's this whole scene when she and Trip are in the decon chamber and they're rubbing like I don't know, it's like some sort of like antibiotic or whatever cream all over each other, and it's so comical because they had that in. I remember they had that in that scene in the teaser. But I'm rewatching this episode, and the only reason why I bring it up because Seven was brought on for the sex factor, right? The sex factor for UPN.
Right.
And they're having this whole conversation as they are rubbing this stuff, like this oil all over each other. Like it's a serious conversation. Like they're talking about what happened on the planet they were on. They're talking like, Trip is complaining about like how the Vulcans like held them back as humans. And they're legit having like a discussion / debate. But it's so hard to take seriously because the camera is like zooming on the small of T'Pol's back as Trip is rubbing like that area. Like it's ridiculous. Like I was like, this is ridiculous. It is so funny. It is such, and I've complained to you about how I was rewatching TOS, right?
Right. Yeah.
So much of TOS is a product of that era. Like, maybe it didn't seem sexist back then, but watching it now, it seems ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
I think in the same way, like watching like some of these scenes, whether it be, early, mid third, fourth season Voyager or, Enterprise, and how T'Pol was really sexualized. is really like a product of the late 90s, early 2000s, when it was that like FHM, like, Playboy kind of era where like, that was fine. And that would be kind of problematic nowadays in like the Me Too
Absolutely,
era.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just so
right.
fascinating. But
Yeah.
sorry, continue your thought process.
No, I mean that's a really good point. Yeah, that's but yeah. So bringing Seven on was obviously a reason to up the sex factor and say goodbye to Jessica Leon, who played
Jennifer Leon.
Oh, Jennifer. Sorry, Jennifer Leon as Cass, and
who I actually really liked, and then she went crazy.
Yeah, I think, and so the second episode really dealt with her and Seven, and kind of
the gift,
but also Cass's evolution, which I think was kind of nice to see them do something with her.
I don't like what they did. Did you ever watch the follow up to that when Fury when she came back?
I've seen it before. I have not watched it yet. I'm kind of making my way through season 4. So
okay,
but I did go back.
I don't like where she ended up as a character. Because she came back and then she was really angry that the Voyager crew allowed her to leave. And then she like tried to kill everyone.
Yeah, I do vaguely remember that. And it's curious because she really chose to leave. It really wasn't.
Wait, she did? I thought they had to get rid of someone because they had
Oh, no. The character cast.
Oh, yes.
Leave.
Not Jennifer Leon. No.
Yeah. Not Jennifer Leon. So so that I think is part of it. But
well, she also couldn't help it because she was like, she was ascending to a higher plane. She was blowing a Voyager. She kind of had to go.
Right, exactly. So that's why I have to go back. I have to go forward in Voyager and watch Fury and just see what I think.
I think that's a season 5 or 6 episode.
Okay.
It was a while.
Yeah, but I did go back to season 3 momentarily and watch Unity because obviously that had a huge part in the finale, or the finale to the finale, 2-part season opener, right?
Because that's why Chakotay was able to kind of like connect with Seven.
Yes, exactly. So that was helpful to kind of see that because I didn't remember. I remembered at the time. I have seen it before, but I didn't remember the context of it all. So I didn't remember that they saved him. By doing that, they saved him, and also that they took him over, essentially, and had him, fire on his shipmates and things like that. And so I went back and watched that. Then I moved forward, and so that's 3 episodes of Voyager. I haven't watched 3 episodes of Voyager in a long time, or 4 actually. So then I jumped ahead to Scientific Method because it was the one where they were having aliens operate on.
That was a great episode.
That really was.
Yeah, and then Janeway was like, "F this shit. I'm taking the ship into this binary star system."
Yeah, right.
Or no, binary pulsars, right?
Binary pulsars. Yeah.
And like, we're all gonna die together, bitches.
Yeah, get off my ship. And,
I do like it when Janeway gets all hardcore like that, and she's like, "Oh, and you're in hell," which I know you also.
Yeah,
like, so time's up. Like she has these like one-liners.
Yeah. I mean,
those are memorable.
So my 2 observations from watching this group of Voyager. So that's about 7 episodes. One is that Janeway is so consistently written, so consistently acted, and so consistently just played through this at least these episodes.
Yeah.
She, I'm wondering if, and I've obviously watched Voyager before, and now I'm going back and watching some select episodes, but I'm just wondering like what kind of character development has been done with Janeway, because she's so consistent.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
There was no difference in her attitude or who she was in any of those episodes, so she was just very consistent, whereas Picard, I mean, maybe Picard and, Kirk was kind of a rogue at times. I guess Picard was kind of consistent, but
I think they were consistent. I mean, like, Janeway for me, I have mixed feelings about Janeway, and I know I had several conversations about this. I feel that sometimes she's written a little bit too earnestly, where she, you have these moments where she's like super she gets on a soapbox, or she's kind of put onto this weird pedestal by the writers, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
I was mentioning that scene in Scorpion where she's quoting these other captains about the Borg.
Oh,
and
yeah,
she quotes
right, yeah.
Picard,
Yep.
and Chakotay is like, oh my God, you sounded just like Picard right there. I'm like, no, she didn't, bitch. She did
Yeah.
not sound like Picard. You're just saying that, like, but that is
Right,
false.
right. Yeah.
But she has like sometimes like really earnest, really sentimental moments, but then if you F with her, it's all over. Like,
Yeah.
she
Well,
goes
even
all
when
she
Chakotay,
goes all hardcore.
yeah, she even went
Yeah.
kind of hardcore with Chakotay when he overrode her orders, even though she was
in
down
part
for
2
the
of Scorpion.
Yeah, in part 2 of Scorpion.
She was she was displeased.
Yeah, very displeased.
Yeah.
So
I do think there's a difference between that, like when she's dealing with her crew versus like an alien threat.
Yeah, and obviously in Year of Hell, you kind of see that at several points. Like, she gets very like on her high horse. The Doctor relieves her of command. She's like, "Who's gonna stop me?" Like, there's no security team. There's no brig. Like, it's
Right.
just very brash. Like, do whatever she wants. And I get it. She's the only captain in the Delta Quadrant. She's kind of the admiral. She has no one to report up to. Like, she's on her own. So it's just a very consistent portrayal, I think, which isn't a bad thing. It's just like, is this all her character is? Like, what, and I don't really enjoy the
do you mean
Liam...
like do you feel she doesn't grow as a character over 7 seasons?
Yeah, I don't.
That's your point.
That's my point. She's not really growing. She's consistent, but I don't know
mean,
what
I
new
think...
things. Where's her growth? Where's she opening up? I don't know. Like, I think she's very hard on being I'm right, and she does listen to people, but she usually sticks to her guns all the time. She doesn't really change her mind. She listens, but she still kind of leads from the front and being like, "This is how we're doing it, folks." Like,
yeah.
So that's my struggle with that. Is it's a very, and granted, I think that the situation is different. Her being in the Delta Quadrant all on her own with no support, so she does kind of have to maintain that, but I think it's almost to a point where it's almost detrimental.
So I do think I do think part of that is a relic of the Rick Berman, Michael Piller era of Star Trek. I think out of all those captains, I think personally Sisko is probably the one that was most complex, because you start with him being very bitter, and then by the end like he loves Bajor.
Right.
He holds like the prophets in such high regard. It's like he completely changes, and in some ways his role as emissary is more important than him as a Starfleet officer. Like he changes quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I do think that is how DS9 was. Like they had these characters like purposely evolve over time, and they wanted them to change, versus these other shows that are, I think, very episodic, right? They're very episodic in nature and less serialized. And I do think that part of that is the growth factor is due to the more episodic storytelling versus serialized storytelling.
Okay. That makes sense. It totally does. I mean, it's a serial in the fact that they're going from one end of the galaxy to the other, but that's the overriding theme. But it is very much a week to week episode driven series. And so I can kind of see. So if we flash forward from that lesson, I'm hoping that we'll still see character development on Strange New Worlds when that comes out, because that's going back to an episodic thing. And actually,
how do you feel about that, by the way? Like,
I'm fine with that. I mean, I think exploring new worlds and meeting new aliens, I think they've got a lot of great opportunity there to create new aliens and do that sort of thing. So I'm excited about that. I think I share with other people that I've listened to the concern that we go like the amnesia factor, which, that's what I'm worried about, which I'm hoping that I'm hoping that writing and I'm hoping that storytelling in the 2020s has evolved to the point where it's not amnesia of the week. It's
right. It's like some serious trauma happened and it never happened. We kind of forgot about it.
Yeah, like if you get hurt, you're still limping the next week. you know, that sort of thing. I think that I'm hoping that that'll be more, they'll be more aware of that. So that's my concern about that. Looking at it now through that perspective of, you know, even though it's week to week and an episodic driven, you know, I still think that an overarching arc, not unlike Voyager, where they're trying to get back to Earth. You know, I hope that the writers of Strange New Worlds will kind of be aware of that and keep the character development going forward.
Yeah, I do think that since we last recorded, I do think Alex Kurtzman had an interview where he talked about that a little more in depth, and he did say that he's looking, you know, while it's going to be more episodic, he's looking for serialized character storytelling. So hopefully that means that you have these overarching storylines for these characters and you see them evolve and grow, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, it might be Planet of the Week or, you know,
right, exactly.
Alien of the Week or Temporal Anomaly of the Week or whatever.
Right, exactly. So that's kind of my observations. The only other observation I have really is around Jerry Ryan and how well she plays Seven in these early days.
Yes.
Really, like from a child, like a angry Borg to a child like perspective, to you know, just this growth and development, and you know, that's actually the character that not only did they bring around for sex appeal, I think that's the actual character that they showed development of probably the most in Voyager.
I would say her and probably the Doctor have the best character arcs. If we're talking about character development and growth, they probably grow and change the most over you know, 7 seasons.
7 seasons, yeah.
While everyone else is pretty like Tom Paris, like whatever, like he doesn't change like over 7 years.
No, he doesn't. You know, he's definitely I mean, I haven't gone back and watched the early seasons of Voyager again, but yeah, he's pretty much the same rule breaking, like especially on that on the episode right before Year of Hell where they're being operated on scientific method. There, he's transporting into this little thing, bringing her flowers and like sneak B'Elanna. This is like that was the start of their relationship, I guess. So was that episode. So it's just kind of interesting to see like, oh, he's still that kind of rogue, like very much like not to cross the streams, so to speak, but very much a Han Solo, like roguish type person. Rules are
right, but he mellows out by the end because then he and B'Elanna kind of, you know, about the relationship. She's pregnant, like
right,
you know, he has more responsibility, so he does kind of mellow out by the end, but he doesn't really change. Like
he doesn't change, no. So you're right. I guess that as I'm going back and watching some Voyager, I think I've got to remember to focus on the characters of Seven and the Doctor who do change because they're probably. I personally think that the Doctor and Seven are like the best characters. Yeah, no, that's a good. Yeah, so I'm enjoying that, and I'm gonna, you know, I'm picking and choosing which episodes interested me. Obviously, I skipped quite a few in the early part of season, to like Day of Honor and a few others before. Oh, I did watch The Raven too. So sorry, I watched 8 episodes of Voyager.
Oh, that's a very 7 episode.
Yeah, so obviously I wanted to see that, and I thought that was quite interesting. Although,
well, that was the one where they like flash back to when she was a kid.
Assimilated. Yeah,
her parents were assimilated. Okay.
Yeah. So that was a good 7 story. The piece that I'm seeing through all kinds of parts of this is like the Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh my God, he's my Vic Fontaine of Voyager. I can't stand him.
Yeah. I
can't stand Vic Fontaine. Every DS9 episode that has Vic Fontaine, I'm like, get me out of here. And every episode, I mean,
I don't feel the same way.
There was a lot of Leonardo da Vinci in Scorpion, and I was like, I do not need this right now.
Yeah, no, I didn't either. But I do like Vic Fontaine as a side note. But I know you do not.
I can't.
So I watched 8 episodes of Voyager, which is probably the most.
Hey, this is like your Voyager renaissance.
It is.
Meanwhile, I'm gonna start rewatching. I think all of Enterprise. So.
Yeah, I mean, So the only other thing Star Trek that I've been doing is I've been working my way through David Mack's book, which still eludes me as to remembering the name. His latest one from Star Trek 2009, More Beautiful Than
I mean,
Death.
you've been listening to it and you don't even remember the name of it?
Yeah, I mean, well, how often? Because it's actually a very complicated title. I mean, More Beautiful Than Death. It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, or
sometimes these new episode names, like especially on Discovery, I'm like, get me out of here.
Oh,
Or
yeah,
even Picard, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Why so complicated?
Right. Why so complicated? Yeah. So yeah, it's getting better now. There was a part where I was actually
The book's getting better.
The book is getting better, yeah. So there was actually a part where I was kind of getting really bored and frustrated, and almost wanted to give up on listening to it, but I continued to work through it. I don't think that, at least in this book, I'm having trouble imagining the characters like I did in Dayton Ward's book. So I think Dayton captured the voice and the demeanor of Kirk, Spock, or her, all of them, a lot better. And David Mack's a great writer, so that's not necessarily, he wrote this 10 years ago. I like his more recent stuff. This was early days. This was based on one movie, 2 hours worth of filming, and so it's not, of course it's not perfect, but I'm having trouble hearing the voices of the characters in my head as the narrator is kind of reading them. So that's my struggle. Also, there's a huge focus on this secondary character, which I alluded to
You
before.
mentioned that last time, yeah.
Yeah, which a revelation has now made that make a lot more sense, which I think is actually, on David's part, really brilliant. But again, I'm still struggling with the voicing of the characters to some extent. So, but I'm almost finished. Actually, I'm mere.
Okay.
I've got a mere 24 minutes left of the.
Oh
book.
yeah, you're
So,
done.
Yeah, I'm essentially done. And then, inspired by my Voyager rewatch, I actually made. So there's only 2 Audible books that are Voyager related right now. So I may go back and listen to the first one. The second one actually doesn't come out until later this fall, but they're both written by the showrunner Christine Bayer.
Oh yeah, she's a huge Voyager nerd.
Yeah, she pretty much,
and she's on the right step of Picard.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
So she and she's been, I think, the primary, if not the only writer for the post-Voyager finale novels. So but only 2 of them, or only one of them, is on
Audible.
On Audible. So I may go back and listen to that one, because there's another one coming out in October, November. So I may give it a shot. We'll see. So yeah, that's there's nothing else in between now and then, which is unless I'm forgetting something. There's no new Discovery novels coming out, or that have been announced. There's no new Picard novels that have been announced or coming out. So that's also why I'm thinking, well, maybe I should give Voyager a listen and see if I enjoy the books.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of books that lead up to this. So I'm also afraid that jumping in at this point, I'll be missing something, which I did with the earlier Next Generation book called Collateral Damage, which was well after the finale and after Nemesis. And I actually didn't feel left out of that book. So Collateral Damage did a nice job. I actually want to say that was also Dayton Ward, but I'm not entirely sure.
I mean, I will have to say that the thing that's hard about some of these novels is that there's no consistent mythology to them. They try to do that a little bit with the Destiny series, and then the Titan series after that, or something like that. There was a narrative, they tried to keep some sort of consistent narrative through a line, but not all of these novels stick to that. So it's honestly very confusing, because it's basically just fan fiction. At a certain point, it's just fan fiction, and it's like none of it is canon. It's like at some point, it's like, what am I reading this for?
Right.
And what history do I need to know here?
Well, there's a whole
yes.
map online of all these novels that came out after the shows ended, basically in 2005, 6. There's this whole map of all the books that you can go online and kind of follow, like in what
God.
order to read them. But interestingly enough, Collateral Damage was by David Mack. So he actually did a great job in that novel of making me feel like I wasn't missing anything because I didn't read the books up till then.
Okay.
Although I'm not necessarily enjoying his voicing of the 2009 crew in this book that I'm reading now, More Beautiful Than Death, he did do a great job in Collateral Damage, especially for me just picking up a Next Generation book out of the blue, like you said, within a mythology that came after the television shows.
Yeah.
So yeah, but other than the Voyager book, I don't know that there's anything new coming out from Simon and Schuster from Star Trek. So I'm a little concerned about what I'm going to be listening to this fall. Although we have 20 more weeks of Star Trek on TV, which is great.
There are also non-Star Trek books out there, if you want.
There are, and I do listen to some other books as well for various, self-development and things like that. So but I do enjoy, this is one of the things we've talked about before, maybe not in an episode that's been released yet, but we've talked a little bit about how Star Trek is a nice escape, right? It's a nice, especially during these times, it's always nice to kind of pick up an old TV show, pick up a book.
It's like comfort food.
It's exactly. So that's also why I'm like the audiobooks, is because it's comfort food that I can take with me on the go, because I can't walk down the street or go, for a run or do whatever, walk around the city and be watching a TV show. So it gives me an outlet to listen to Star Trek. So that's a value to me as a viewer, and why I enjoy it, and why I think there might be one other book coming out in the fall, but 2 books, one of them Voyager, which I have not listened to previously. So I'm a little nervous about what I'm going to listen to this fall. So if Simon & Schuster editors are listening,
okay.
Can we get some more books?
There are plenty of books you can go back to. Like, there's so many other books that I'm sure you have not read out of all the Star Trek novels that have been published. I don't know how many of them are Audible, though. I think
right. See, that's the thing. It's the Audible ones. I mean, I can and I have gone back and listened to. I could go back and listen to the Discovery ones, because they provide a nice tapestry of where characters were before Discovery. So that's always good. So that's what I've been Star Trekking. That's what you've been Star Trekking.
That's a long segue.
We did. We went deep there for a while, and now let's spill some Trek.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about 2 Lower Decks episodes. So our listeners are getting 2 for the price of 1 today. So we're going to be talking about episode 2, Envoys, and episode 3, Temporal Edict. So why don't we talk about Envoys first? So yeah, Mike, what did you think of Envoys?
Envoys was enjoyable. I would say it was good overall. There were some really good moments through it, and I think the message at the end, and we talked a little bit off camera about Boimler's breakdown, and then the resolution to that, which was orchestrated by Mariner, was a nice lesson. Like, that's that's what you kind of watch Star Trek for. So that I enjoyed, but I didn't enjoy it quite as much as Second Contact. I have to say, I still enjoyed Second Contact a little bit more than I did Envoys. but it was still very good. I thought it was interesting that there were some funny moments with, obviously it was very heavily well, no, it was split. One thing I do like about this, it's true, and we kind of focus on, there are 4 characters, and they're in all the episodes. I mean, obviously there's only 3 episodes, but in this episode, you see Mariner and Boimler on an away mission, and then you see Tendi wanting to hang out with Rutherford, and Rutherford going through all of these great experiences to check out other divisions, because he spends all of his time in the Jeffries tubes. So that was a fun little adventure. Romp through the story. You get to romp through this ship, and you got to see the senior officers kind of interact with them, which was good. But yeah, I thought it was overall good. I still rated Second Contact higher, in my personal opinion, as a story. But what did you think about Envoys?
Yeah, I agree with you, and I gave you my initial reaction right after watching it. I did not think that it was as strong as the pilot, and I do think part of the reason why is because Mariner and Boimler's story was too similar to what we saw in the pilot, in that you basically followed the 2 of them, and you saw that Mariner has this like street smart kind of real world experience versus Boimler's textbook experience, and you see that clash, and then Mariner's experience ultimately win out versus Boimler's like non-real world experience, and it basically hit like a lot of the similar beats as what was hit in the pilot. So I actually thought that even though their excursion on the planet was fun, I do think that it had its moments, and there were some pretty good like Easter eggs there, like Jamaharan and things like that. You know, like there was those Easter eggs like that were cool. I thought that from a narrative perspective, it was kind of going back to the same well, and as a result, it kind of weakened the episode for me. Because ultimately speaking, it kind of, you know, it basically was the same thing. I actually did enjoy Rutherford's storyline more, and I liked that he was able to kind of explore all these different divisions. I really liked when he was in the holodeck with Ransom, and he was going through the command simulations, and the kids were being ejected into space due to just bad decision making. Like, it was just funny. Like, you know, it was like, it's very, like, in terms of the humor, it's just silly, it's funny, it's a little bit slapstick, you know, like, and ultimately he just realized that his calling is in engineering. You know, I thought that was great. And I thought that even though it was the B storyline, in that it was like really quick, you know, really quick takes. I actually like that more than the A storyline. So yeah, like, you know, I thought that there were some really cool call outs. Like I loved Boimler's meltdown when he's just talking about how he's going to get shipped out, and they're going to find his like final shaky video logs, and they're going to try to piece together what happened to him. Like all those things, that was funny.
That was,
you know,
great.
and
yeah.
really good. Like, you know, like it's like jabbing at, you know, these like Star Trek tropes in a funny way, as was Rutherford's you know, journey through these different divisions. Like, how do you just, you know, go to like a science division versus like engineering division was great, you know.
Yeah,
doesn't happen, but it's
I was really happy to see how all the senior officers treated him.
Yeah, no, I like that too.
You know, that I thought that was a really good message, and I know that there was some talk about the first episode and the characterization of the senior officers, and I think that, you know, for the most part, they were really redeemed in this episode to some extent, about how, and it speaks to the character of Rutherford too, being so well liked because he's such a hard worker and just a nice all around guy, that that they are happy to help him move on to whatever is in his best interest.
I like that too.
You know,
Yeah.
so the dramatic way that they always would pause and give that dark, like darken the background with I thought was really was funny in a very standard kind of cartoony way, but the reaction for both security and for engineering was really super supportive, and I thought that was really great. And that's exactly what you kind of want to see. That's like the hopeful, like really well run Starfleet piece of all of this that I think people like to see, especially after the first episode and people thinking that the senior officers were just kind of lame,
kind of like idiots.
Yeah. So any favorite quotes? I know that we've talked about a few of them, but you did like the meltdown. Anything else that kind of stood out for you in terms of like quotes or scenes that you really
I mean, my favorite was definitely when Rutherford was doing the command simulations, and they're like, the kindergartners are being sucked out into space, and oh no, now it's the pre-K. It's just, that was really funny.
Yeah,
that was my favorite because me and children don't get along.
Right.
Not that I want them to be sucked into space, but I thought it was. And then Ransom was like, let's try again, but with more children, and that was just funny because it just it reminds us of like why the Enterprise D has so many kids on it. Like, we get that it's a flagship, but there are way too many children on the ship,
I mean, keeping families together, right? So so there's that. One of my favorite was the smorgasbord.
Oh yeah,
which was great. Which was great. I'm trying to think. There's one other scene. I really like the ending with Tendi and Rutherford. Tendi watching the star,
the pulsar, or something.
The pulsar, and Rutherford looking at the conduit, and both kind of staring at their own areas of interest with wonder and amazement. And I thought that was really a cute way. And also wondering, like, is there a possible romance in order for Tendi and Rutherford? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's like friend zone or if they're, if they're setting something up. I mean, Tendi expressed that she wanted to spend time with Rutherford, but it could just be friend zone. I don't know.
Right, and I think she kind of joked and said, "You didn't try all those jobs just for me, right?" And
she's like, and he's like, no.
So he kind of did. He kind of did want to spend more time with her. So that I think was more indicative of a possible romance, was the fact that he went and endured that because he wanted to spend more time with her. So
/ he didn't want to go back on his word because he promised that he would.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot to say.
Yeah, so I mean, it was an enjoyable episode. There were some good things, but I agree, it's a little bit of a kind of same thing, same bat channel, same bat problem.
Oh my God.
For Mariner and Boimler, but I mean, it's still, I was really impressed. I mean, Mariner really does like Boimler. And she was looking out for him, so I think that was kind of interesting. And I also think in that scene where he's breaking down, she's actually really concerned and is worried, like, which kind of, she's all action a lot of times, but you kind of see that she's like, oh crap, like, what did I just do? What just happened? And so she makes it up, which was really amazing. I think it's also funny, and the thing he says to her, you and I are the same age. When did you have time to do all that stuff with the Klingon, with the Klingon? So, I think that there's some, I mean, obviously she said she served on 5 starships, I think, already. So she's bounced around a lot,
and she's been to and this is also in the pilot, but she's been to many more planets than him.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting if they're the same age and she was demoted. she was already a lieutenant and had already served on 5 ships. I think that's there's a little math problem there somewhere.
I don't know. At some point they're gonna get into it. Did she like just speed through Starfleet Academy? I don't know.
Right. Did she start young because her parents are an admiral and a captain? Who knows?
And that's also curious. Like, I do want to understand do people not know that she's the captain's daughter? Because, the way that it was revealed to us in the pilot was like, it's not common knowledge. But I don't see how that is possible in that day and age to not know someone is related to someone. Like, that's curious to me. But at the same time, it's not explicitly said that people don't know. So I am like a little bit like that hasn't really been explored.
I think obviously the first officer does, because he's like thinking that she's hot at the end of the next episode, right? Which we're going to get to in a minute. We'll talk about more about that later. But yeah, I do wonder how well known it is if she is in fact the captain's daughter. I mean, we do get to see it. There've been previews of a scene where she and her mom are arguing, and she gives her Mariner gives Captain Freeman the Vulcan salute and says "Peace out."
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of wonder about that. So I guess we'll find out more. But I don't know that the lower deckers know that she is the captain's daughter.
I just don't understand how that can not be known.
Maybe people make assumptions based on last name or whatever. So
I guess
maybe, so, well, sounds like we both enjoyed it. We didn't enjoy it quite as much as Second Contact, but how about we move on to the third episode?
Yeah, should we rate this one? Do you want to give this one a grade?
Sure. Do you remember what grade we gave the last episode?
Well, I gave Second Contact a 9, I think.
Okay, and I gave it a 9.5. So
yeah. So I actually would give Envoys a 7.5.
Okay. I would probably be between 7 and 8. I don't know which way I want to go. I'll go 8 because I think the lessons that we learn in Envoys is a good one. Are some good ones. So I think I'm going to give it an 8.
Cool.
All right, let's move on to Temporal Edict.
Personal log. I've completed all of today's assignments ahead of schedule, and I've requested more. Space, the funnest frontier?
Episode 3 of Star Trek Lower Decks. Johnson, what did you think of Temporal Edict?
Yeah, so I really like this one. I thought that both major storylines, the one with Mariner and Ransom on the planet, and then the one with everyone else on the ship, I thought that they were both really strong, and I thought that it was enjoyable. I really like, I mentioned this to you separately, I really like that this episode gave us the chance to see the ensigns interact a lot more with the senior staff. Whether it be Mariner really having some moments of Ransom, or Boimler talking to Captain Freeman, giving her a pep talk, for example. I thought that was great. And I thought the pacing was great overall. I thought that, where it comes to, and you were talking about this, the name of the actual episode is it's spot on.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's brilliant. Wow. Kudos to Mike McMahon for this one. I mean, that is a great, you go into the episode thinking there's going to be like time travel.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with that, but
absolutely not.
So brilliant how that name works for the episode.
Yeah. And, obviously the whole thing with buffer time is a callback to Scotty and how he, basically buffers in all this time so that he can come across as impressive.
A miracle worker.
He'll always beat his deadlines.
Right.
So this was obviously a big play on that, but then the consequences of what happens when the captain finds out that all this time is being buffered in, and Yeah, I mean, overall, yeah, it was great. I do think that the chemistry between Mariner and Ransom, I don't know how I feel about that yet. I mean, we'll see where that goes, and this sexual chemistry between them, and this angst between them. I don't know, like it's like this like love hate kind of thing. I do want to see how it evolves before, actually saying like how I feel about it. But right now, I'm like, okay, we'll see. And I do like that Captain Freeman kind of recognized how Boimler was able to kind of like help her come out of her own echo chamber when it comes to being so strict with time. And like she was able to like take his advice and apply it. And I thought that was great. And then I thought the very end of the episode where they go to the far future, like that was great too. When here's Brad Boimler with one of the great birds of the galaxy, which is obviously like a Gene Roddenberry callback, but it's like this random like bird of prey on his shoulder, and he's kind of like freaking out about it. And then there's like random Miles O'Brien call out, and I was like, this is amazing. It was just it's completely random, but it's such a good capper. I really like that.
Agreed. Yeah, that was a great capper, especially the Miles O'Brien. Chief O'Brien brought into lower decks right there. So
yeah, and of course it's like him on the transporter console,
right
TNG,
from next
not
TNG, not from Deep Space Nine. No.
Yeah. So
yeah.
But yeah, overall, I thought I really like this one. I'm trying to think if there's anything else about it I want to mention, but no, I think I pretty much talked about everything that came to mind for me. What about you?
Yeah, I've probably watched this almost as much as I've watched Second Contact, on the order of 4 or 5 times. It's just enjoyable, funny, fun. The personal log that Boimler does walking down the corridor while everyone is freaking out, and he's like, space, the funnest frontier.
Yeah. I do have to say this was a good contrast to the previous episode, because this is where he is in his element, right? Where he's by the books, he can follow orders, he can get shit done. While if you just kind of put him on a planet, there's no order to things, he's not in his element. So I do think that this was in some ways like showcasing how he's not like completely incompetent, like he knows what to do. He just needs to be in the right environment to do it.
Right. He's a hard worker. He can get stuff done. He enjoys it. He's not one for just hanging out and doing nothing. But I love that they introduced buffer time at the beginning. They had margaritas.
Yeah.
After finishing,
I could go for one right now.
Yeah, I agree. Margarita right now would be great. That made me think of the margaritas, but also the phaser. Mariner shooting the phaser at the brig shield.
Yeah.
And being like, oh, that was set to stun, but clearly it wasn't.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of hilarious. I would say that the both storylines in this episode were great. And it was actually, especially after seeing the first episode where the senior staff kind of overlooked Boimler's contribution to the solution. This time he really was the solution.
Yeah.
So I think that this was a great redemption for him and a good highlight of his characteristics. Also, Mariner on the planet, just badass. Like that woman could, especially, another favorite quote of mine is from when she's surrounded by the spears, and she's like, surrounded by spears. Wait, am I Kirk? Is this the 2260s?
Yeah, that was great.
That was hilarious. The whole exchange with her and Ransom in the cage, where she's like, here's all my scars, here's you play it safe, which is a direct throwback to how Will Riker was often perceived as playing it safe. So I thought that was interesting. And also, what else happened in that cave other than her being stabbed in the foot, which I thought was a brilliant turnaround in that scene. But what did she say? God, man, I can't remember. She said something that made me laugh before the whole fight.
Before the fight.
I don't remember. Anyway, it was just an enjoyable episode. I would probably go back and watch that again, just because it is, so well written from the title all the way to the characterizations. I think that it does show how great of a Starfleet officer Mariner really is. And I know what it was. The whole interaction with her, and she's like, permission to speak freely. And Ransom is like, you always do that. No one can shut you up. That was hilarious. So, Tendi and Rutherford kind of take a back seat to this episode a little bit. It's definitely a Mariner and a Boimler episode. This time separate, though, which I think is great.
So I do think that was nice that they weren't together, and that was a change of pace, and that's part of the reason why I like this one more.
Yeah. Also, it's kind of we were on our way to Cardassia.
Oh yeah,
we had a showdown with a Klingon. It was almost like Star Trek 3 with the showdown with the Klingon bird of prey. Almost. It was there were some just really great call outs to previous Trek in this episode. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I would actually, this is definitely, at least for me, a 9 again, if not a little bit higher. I really enjoyed this one.
Oh yeah, I would give this one an 8.5. I thought it was really good. I do think that was curious that the aliens were using like spears, but obviously they're warp capable, otherwise they wouldn't have been invited to the Federation. So that was a little odd, but I was like, all right, it's fine.
And the whole episode being caused by this whole buffer time being revoked, and the whole reason things went badly on the planet was because they were rushing around and he put the wrong artifact on this shuttle. So and insulted them. So I thought that was, see what happens when you, push people too far. So it was just, this was by far better than the second episode. Definitely on par with episode 1 for sure.
Yeah, no, it was really good.
Yeah, so awesome. Anything else to add about these 2 episodes of Lower Decks?
I don't think so. No, I'm like looking forward to the next one. Hopefully, to what you're saying, I would like to see more interaction between Captain Freeman and Mariner, and hopefully we get a little bit more about their relationship. At least that's what we see from the previews. But yeah, no, overall, I'm still very much enjoying Lower Decks, and I think season 1, it is a very I would say it's a very consistent, confident season. First season of Star Trek, and they kind of know like the tone. They want to know what they know what they're going for, rather. So you can kind of tell by the writing that the staff they have a sense, of how they want the show to be.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's clear that this is written for fans by fans.
Yeah, for sure.
Most definitely. So very cool. Well, let's move on to our next segment.
Yeah, so off topic, where we talk about other stuff besides Star Trek that we're watching or reading. So, Mike, what's on your list?
Having watched 8 episodes of Voyager, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of time.
Dennis was watching Penny Dreadful, and you saw a few scenes here and there.
I saw some scenes, not
your genre.
Not my genre, no.
It's a really good show. It's really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, there's some good actors and actresses in there, for sure. But, I think I'm kind of over the trope of how can we rewrite Dracula, Frankenstein, and all of these historical characters. I'm just kind of over it. If you want to throw them in space and do that, I'd be interested. But
that sounds like a B movie waiting to happen.
Maybe, but
I feel there must be actually a Dracula in space. There has to be.
Probably. But I want it written by like Stephen Moffat or someone with credible film and TV history. So yeah, no, I did not really get into Penny Dreadful. That was part of his binging. But we are watching Rust Valley Restorers, which is like it's on Netflix, but it's a TMC, I don't know, AMC type show where it kind of follows this. It's a reality TV show, which I don't watch a lot of, to be honest, about this company called Rust Brothers up in British Columbia, Canada. And I mean, the scenery up there is beautiful, first of all. So Dennis and I talked a little bit about, it might be nice to go to British Columbia and
all right,
and see it. But it's just a restoring show with a lot of stupidity at times, and but it's good, Then Dennis, so we have a rule: you can't watch, if we're both watching a show, you can't watch it without me, type situation. And I don't watch it. I mean, I don't watch a lot of TV. This week was an exception. But so he went on to view some other like similar genre shows about restoration and car.
Okay, so random.
So, yeah, I mean, like once you start watching one or two things, Netflix just serves you up, like starts to link to your
the algorithm.
Yeah. So, so Rust Brothers from Rust Valley Restorers is what the only other thing I've been watching. I'm trying to think if there's anything I've been intaking as far as...
Speaking of reality, though, I mean, I don't remember when, like, in terms of timing, our last recording and when you actually watched it, but Indian Matchmaker.
Oh yeah, we watched Indian Match. It feels like
which came up in. I had brunch with some friends today, and that came up, and I was like, "All right, you know what? I gotta watch a show."
You do have to watch it. Yeah, it's interesting. It's only 6 episodes, so it's not a huge investment. Yeah, Dennis and I did watch that, but that was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's come up in conversation quite a bit.
It has, yeah. So. I mean, the characters are quite memorable, and the situations are interesting. It's definitely something that is, I would say, is culturally awakening as far as like if you didn't understand or didn't know about Indian culture, you definitely get some good education in it. Yeah. So there's that. But we watched that a little while ago. So yeah, I mean, we typically have dinner together and watch 1 hour or so of a show, whatever we're watching. So
yeah.
So it's not like it's kind of like whatever we come up with next. So
right.
So yeah, so we're currently in Rust Brothers territory right now, which season 3 we're in the middle of season 2-ish or early part of season 2. So and season 3 just came out on Netflix this
wow,
Friday,
okay. I didn't realize it was that much.
Yeah, so we've already gone through one season, and we're on to second.
Oh wow, okay.
So yeah, but Indian Matchmaker was before that, and that's pretty much it. I don't really have a whole lot of other off-topic. I think I spilled all of that in my What Did You Star Trek?
I know you've mostly just been Star Trekking.
Yeah. So what about you? What have you? I'm excited to hear your thoughts on a particular show we've talked about before.
Yeah. So since the last time we recorded, I started to watch The Orville. And
previously you had just watched the pilot when we last talked.
When we talked, the pilot. Wait, did I mention The Orville the last time that we recorded?
On our last episode talking about
okay, you know
Contact.
What? Time means nothing anymore, so I don't even know. So I'm like 6-7 episodes into the season.
And what are your thoughts so far?
And, I can understand why a lot of like traditional Star Trek diehards always, when they complain about like Discovery or Picard, why they're like, oh yeah, like the Orville is so much more Star Trek than these shows. I understand what they mean, but I don't know if that's good or bad. I think that the thing about the Orville, in my opinion, is that it is an homage to the original series and the Next Generation, but it's an homage to the point where it is just straight up ripping it off. Like, it's, if Seth MacFarlane wasn't such a big Star Trek nerd, I'd be like, this is this is straight up just ripping off Star Trek, But because he kind of prefaced it with, this is an homage to Star Trek, and I love Star Trek and what it is, he gets a pass. Because like, there are straight up situations in the episode, like the second episode of the Orville, Seth MacFarlane's character, Ed Mercer, and Adrian Palicki's character, Kelly Grayson, they get stuck in a zoo. Like, they basically get captured by this alien race, and they get put in a cage. And I'm like, okay. Like, this is like straight up, they didn't call it the menagerie / the cage, but this is straight up the cage, And obviously there's a more comical bend to it. But I'm like, okay, and if I did not know that this was, again, an homage, I'll be like, all right, they're just like, this is straight up plagiarism.
But to be fair, they were really put in a zoo. They're on display. The difference is, I mean, I get the whole reference to the cage and the menagerie and everything, but there are people walking through, looking at them that are like, they're in a zoo.
Right, but that's what the menagerie is. The menagerie is a zoo,
But only for the Telosians. It's not even for anybody else.
But it was for these aliens. Like, these aliens are based. It's like this. So what it was this one alien race kind of looks down on all other alien races that aren't as technologically advanced. So there's this one alien race that it was their zoo.
Got it. Okay.
They even like kind of looked like the Telosians, like big foreheads or whatever. I can see why, like, these diehards love the Orville so much, because it is these very episodic episodes, sometimes just straight up like, moral quandaries that are out of traditional TOS TNG episodes. And it's like, the story beats are very similar. I don't personally think, at least from what I've seen in the first season, it really has pushed the envelopes of sci-fi. Like, it is very much a retread with a comical bend. Like, that honestly is very familiar, And I think in that way, it is that, comfort food angle that maybe a lot of these more traditional Star Trek fans are looking for, and that Discovery and Picard don't deliver. And if that's the kind of Star Trek you want, watch the Orville, rewatch TNG. I think Star Trek has changed with the times. Like, there's darker characters, there's more of a moral, like, gray area, more serialized storytelling. It's different, and like, I like it. I'm enjoying it for what it is, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, this is like, in some ways, like, almost too familiar, And it's interesting. There are interesting setups. Like, this one character, Commander Bortsu or Bortis or whatever.
Bortis, yes.
Bortis, yeah.
Bortis.
He is from, his background is that he's part of an all-male species. Right. And then in the third episode, he and his mate, who's also male, they have a child, and then the child is female. So it turns out that there are actually females in this race. It's just that it's not okay to be female. So there's like these like, and I'm like, well, that's kind of a retread if we want to talk about it, that's a retread of the Outcast from TNG. You know, like there's like these things that's like they're interesting, but I don't know if they necessarily cover new ground. So yeah, you know, I'm okay with it. Like I think it's fine. I think it's enjoyable. It's easy to hop in, hop out. I'm in the middle of one episode, you know, like, but I didn't have to like watch the whole thing, but I'll go back to it. Yeah, you know, like, so that is my, and who knows, because there's 2 seasons of it, it might change, but that's my current thinking of the Orville from the 6 or 7 episodes that I've seen. So yeah, so that's the Orville. So I'm still going through that. And then the other thing that I'm doing is I have finally started to play Zelda Breath of the Wild, which is a Switch game. It's a Nintendo Switch game. It came out a few years ago. It basically was one of the launch games, maybe like a year or 2 after the Switch launched. And it's been heralded as a masterpiece of the last 4 or 5 years of video games. And you have played a little bit. I know you're not a gamer, but we talked about a little bit. You played the original Zelda for
I did play
NES.
the original, right? I did play Link before, so yes.
So you played the original Zelda, and you know, the formula for Zelda has not changed. You know, Link is not a complex character. He doesn't have like a dark background with a lot of baggage. You know, he doesn't really have anything to say. So it's not really about the character of Link. Like, you are Link, right? But you are on this journey to save Hyrule, and Princess Zelda kind of factors into that somehow. You know, you basically go dungeon by dungeon, you open things up, you like get hearts or whatever, you gain new abilities, etc., etc. The difference about this particular game is that it is an open world game. So you can, I think you can basically do whatever you want. Like, you can, I think you might be able to, if you want to, go and fight Ganon right at the start of the game, you know, but it's not recommended. But it's like this, like, you have this option. If you want to, you can, but they recommend that you like do all those other things, all these side quests, and like, you know, get all these abilities before you do that. But the world is open to you. You have like general directions and general tasks. But overall, there's like this open world structure where, you know, it's your oyster. Yeah, you know, I think that my tastes in gaming have changed over the years where, and I don't know when you stopped playing video games, but video games have become much more, in many ways, much more cinematic, right? You have like, they're much more complex stories. And the games themselves are more complex in terms of gameplay, in terms of actually how you're interacting with the world. But you also have much more like these richer storylines. It's not just like Mike Tyson's Punch Out and you're just like Little Mac and you have to like win, right? There's now these stories where it's like really complicated. You know, there's a lot of character development. I mentioned this game before, but The Last of Us is actually a great example where it's a kind of a zombie survival game, but you basically see the characters evolve over time. You see the relationships evolve. You're playing the characters, but you're playing as the characters rather than you are the character in the Link example. So I think that my tastes have changed for gaming, where I kind of need like a strong narrative, and then I really love dark storylines. Like complex characters, dark storylines, people are dying, and high risks, you know, like all these things. So when I'm playing Zelda and I'm like in a dungeon and I'm like, oh my God, like I need to spend like, you know, an hour like trying to figure out like this. Usually these dungeons in Zelda, like, which hasn't really changed over the years, in essence, they're just like, they're big brain teasers, right? Like you need to like go to this room and like unlock this puzzle in order to unlock this other thing, this other room, and then you fight a boss, right? That formula has not changed. I think with the 3D era of games, like it's a little bit different because now you have to go to the second floor in order to see something on the first floor, and like you have to like figure this out. And like I'm like, I don't have the patience for this. Like, I don't have the patience to sit here and figure out this puzzle. I just want to play this game, even though the puzzle is the game. So I think that I'm just like my attention span and my tastes have changed a little bit when it comes to this stuff. So now I'm like, I've probably played around like 10 hours of Zelda, and I'm like, some people in the meantime have played over 100 hours of this game. And I'm like, should I just rewatch Enterprise instead? So those are the two things that I'm doing that are off topic. I'm watching the Orville for the first time, and I'm playing Zelda Breath of the Wild. So yes, so that's
there we go.
Time. Yep.
Well, I think maybe it's time for us to go talk to Deanna for a little while. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, let's go dish with Deanna.
Come in. Hi.
You got a minute?
Sure.
What is going on with you, Mike? How's your personal life? How are things in Hell's Kitchen and your relationship?
Yeah, I think this week's been interesting, mainly because I did watch a lot of Star Trek, and I'm thinking like it felt like an off week for me. So, and I don't know exactly why. And Dennis and I have talked a little bit about why we felt off, but we don't know why. Maybe it's a little bit of cabin fever. Maybe it's missing going on vacation. Various different things I think kind of all contribute to that. So. I think that's part of the reason why I've deep dived into Voyager or to Star Trek in general, is just to kind of give my mind something to like relax it a little bit. Although, it's been a long time since I've seen these episodes. So it's also rediscovering them. But, I think it's just. I think maybe things are just status quo. Yeah, status quo here. That's a throwback to the Raven.
Okay.
From Seven of Nine's ship that she grew up on. I just think that it's summer. It's hot. It's it's already the end of August, right? Or getting towards the end of August, which seems mind-blowing.
Yeah.
That so much time has so quickly disappeared. And that we're in 6 months of this at this point almost, I want to say. I don't even know. Now I've lost track. So I think things are good. I got out this week and had dinner with one of my friends, so that was good. That was really a great catch up, and great to share what's going on with and my friend Gary, who you've met before. Had dinner with him this week. So it was just good to get out of the house and have dinner outside and chat and just have a different change of scenery. I think it's if one thing about 2020 is true, is that it feels like it's kind of the same ride over and over again. You just kind of go through phases where you're fine and things are good, and then you go through times when you're like, this sucks. Like, this is, you get bored, you lose track of time, you need a distraction. So I would say, and obviously there are a lot of news headlines right now that are very stressful and demanding, and so there's also that, I think, and that's also what I worry about as we move into the fall and an election coming up and things like that, that the news is just going to get more and more overwhelming. And I think that figuring out a way to both limit that and to control how much you're taking in is important, which is also why I'm happy that there's Star Trek, especially new Star Trek, to kind of fall back on as kind of a break in that experience of living in these times
in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, the real world is a It's a confusing place right now. There's a lot going on. Way lot more going on. As you adjust yourself so that the light is good.
Yeah, I'm like, this lighting is better. For our listeners that can't see me, it's like, yeah, it's
Johnson just
it's helping me a
adjusted the camera so that there was a little more light from his window on him.
I just didn't. The lighting was not serving me before, so
for all of our audio listeners,
I mean, I can tell them that the lighting was bad.
There we go.
Yeah.
So that's sort of my week. What about you? How are you doing? Anything?
Yeah, I think I'm doing okay overall. I do think I am feeling a little bit more of what you're talking about. Whether it is a combination of how things are going at work and the news, and just general. I would say it's kind of like, where is this all going? / where are we going to end up? Where am I going to end up? You know, like there are these larger overarching unknowns, and I'm definitely the type that I'd like to kind of have an idea of the destination, but I do think that right now, because there's so much uncertainty, I've been trying to take things day by day. But it's been that way for, like you're saying, like 5-6 months. And I'm like, when will things get back into a groove where we can legitimately have longer term things to look forward to? Because right now, like, longer term planning, I think, is difficult. There is just too much uncertainty to make any long term plans. And I'm just like, yeah, what's next? You know, what, like, where's this all leading? How things are going to look in not just next year, but in next month, you know? So I do feel a little bit more of that overall. And I think that I'm trying to focus a little bit more on understanding and accepting, like, the things that I can't control, and then kind of enjoying the things that I can control, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And whether it's that, you know, small meetups with friends, or my aquarium, or my plant projects, or you know, Star Trek I'm consuming, like things like that I can control, those like small things that I can look forward to, focusing more on that. So I think that is where I'm trying to, you know, like, in terms of my mindset, where I'm trying to kind of align myself. And then also, just being kind of grateful for the things I do have, right? I think that it's very easy to focus on the things that we don't have and focus on what we can't control. But it's very hard to be in a mindset to be grateful for what we have, whether it is our health, whether it is the health of our friends, having like a stable income, like things like that, where I think for a lot of people, honestly, that isn't something that they can fall back on. I definitely know people that have been affected by COVID substantially more than I have, whether it be their work or their personal lives, or they've had friends pass away because of it. So, and not to say that none of that can happen to either of us, but I do think that for the moment, being able to kind of be grateful for where we are right now, I think is an important mindset to have. So yeah, like, I think that overall, that's where I'm trying to, like, just align my mind and kind of shift my paradigm to be one of kind of having more gratitude, and kind of in both what I have and what I do have to look forward to, versus what I can't control, and what I'm quote unquote missing, right? So yeah, that's I think where I am overall. no additional dates since the last one I was on. I'm okay with that though. I'm still kind of just,
But as we talked about last night, you're still conversing with people. It's just, things haven't clicked or moved forward past the general chatting, swiping right type situation. So
Right.
you're still out there. You're still, it's not like you're not doing anything. It's just things haven't progressed beyond a swipe and maybe a hi, really, right?
Yeah. So sometimes it's like hi, and then I say hi back, and then there's nothing. I'm like, okay, why don't you just say hi to me? But yes, just kind of keeping open, being just welcoming to opportunities, quote unquote opportunities, and just taking it from there. We'll see.
Yeah, well, that's good. I think that's not an unwise tactic, and I think what we're both feeling is probably being felt by a lot of people.
For sure.
And I think you're right about the gratitude. Having a gratitude practice is proven to make people happier or to feel happier overall, despite their circumstances or despite
and it
the
takes
world.
work. It takes work because I think very naturally speaking, all of us kind of focus on what we don't have and focus on, like, I would say, like, focus not only on not what we don't have, but also on if I could only have this, or I could only have that, and
Right. Yeah.
what we're missing out on. This, FOMO is a perfect example, right, of this idea of like missing out, right, versus focusing on what we have. I think that takes discipline and practice to kind of have a kind of mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not something that cultivates itself overnight. It's definitely, in the past and when I've done life coaching, I think it's definitely something that it takes practice. It takes time. It's not instantaneous, but if you develop a practice, a daily ritual or daily way of doing that, overall, you're going to feel happier about life in general. So, as humans, we look for problems, we look for what we're lacking, and it's a perfect combat to that, to appreciate what we do have, appreciate who we have, and just continue. It's not an end all be all solution, but it does improve your overall mental well-being.
Yeah.
So, and as times get more stressful or less, stressful, then that can improve your overall health and well-being. So, yeah.
Cool.
So there we go.
So I think that does it for this week's episode. Did you have anything else?
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
We just want to remind people to subscribe if you haven't already. Leave us a review. You can also reach us via email at deepspacepride@gmail.com. And where can they find us on the internet, Johnson?
Yeah, they can also find us on social media. On Twitter and Instagram, we're at Deep Space Pride. And you can always send us a message or DM us, and we'll try to respond.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you again next time.
Bye, everyone.
Deep Space Pride is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com, or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
Coconut.